In this episode of our photography review show, we're gonna review over 90 images from 40 photographers. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. For those who don't know me, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now for the past 2 or 3 years I've been reviewing photos of my friends and colleagues, and because it was very popular we decided to offer it to our photography community here at Clever Photographer. Now we receive hundreds of images, and that's the reason why we had to limit the entries to 1 or 2 pictures per week per photographer, and that's the same reason why we take the show and usually divide it between 2 or 3 different parts. In the first parts we usually look at the landscape photographers, and in the other 2 parts we look at the rest of the photography styles. Now because we have many pictures to go through, we're gonna jump straight into it, but before that I have 2 reminders for you. First of all, don't forget about our Facebook photography group. It's called Clever Photographer Academy, and it's a place where we talk all kinds of photography. You can head there, search for us, Clever Photographer Academy on Facebook, and you can join our competitions there. You can ask us any photography questions. You can get reviews of your photos throughout the week, and just really join us for photography talk. So don't forget to head to the Facebook and join us at Clever Photographer Academy. Now the second thing is we have to look at the last week's photographer of the week, so let's jump into that. And yes, here comes your popular part where we look at the photographer of the week from the past episode. So now we're talking about 17th of January, and after quite some time we were able to recognize a macro photographer for our photographer of the week award. So the award goes to Guido Lieben, who is from Belgium, and Guido has been photographing for over 50 years, and obviously he covers many different photography styles, but it is really the macro photography and specifically the butterflies we were really struck by and we loved in the last episode. So I'm here on his Instagram, and again, as I mentioned, there is obviously lots of different photography styles, but when I scroll down and show you some of the butterflies, the incredible captures, the incredible details, and very lovely technical skills together with the composition skills really made his picture stand out, and we were really happy to recognize his images throughout this weekly award. So if you want, make sure you head to Instagram and check out his Instagram profile here at Guido Lieben, or you can also check out his Facebook page under the same name. So Guido, thank you very much. Congratulations for your incredible work. Please make sure you send us more pictures in the future. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to become our photographer of the week, all you have to do is to join us for this show. If you want more information about it, head to cleverphotographer.com/review. Find out the upcoming dates, the links, the information about how you can join us. And first of all, this is a great way to learn more about your images and how you can push your skills forward. And second of all, you can get the opportunity like this where you can join us and become our photographer of the week. Hello there and welcome to the third and final part of our photography review show on 24th of January. This is where we're going to look at the rest of the photography styles. Now we have aviation photography, food photography, portrait photography, macro photography, and wildlife photography to look at. So it should be 11 photographers and it should be again lots of fun. So let's go ahead and start. But before we're going to do that, we would like to ask you to please make sure that you like this video, that you leave a comment, and also follow our channel so we can keep creating content like this. But anyway, that is out of the way. Let's jump into the photography reviews. So starting by Jakub here, aviation photography, something quite rare. I have to say that in the last 6 months since we've been doing this show, I haven't seen aviation photography yet. So it's very, very exciting. Jakub, thank you so much for sending the pictures over. And to be honest, you send us the pictures in how you edit them and then in raw files. So what I actually try to do is I took your pictures in that raw file and try to edit them myself. And you will be able to see what I did with them. I think you'll be also quite happy to see that the result you came out is pretty much similar to what I was able to recreate, and your pictures are very, very nice. So let's have a look at them. So let's just first quickly run through the technical part of your images. And I mean, starting here, you're using Canon R. From your camera setting, you're using lens 60 to 600 millimeters, which must be huge. ISO 500, 368 millimeters, f11, 1/1060th of a second. Now, obviously, with the ISO being quite high, a little bit of noise gets introduced into the image, but looking at the pictures, it's very manageable with that long lens, f11, 1/1060th of a second to make sure that everything is pinpoint sharp. And you did very, very well here. Looking at the picture, again, really, really nice and sharp, visible details all the way through, even inside of the cockpit. So well done there. Really love it. Love the kind of path behind the actual planes. So well done there. Now look in this picture, a really epic, beautiful, beautiful sun with the plane in front of it. Looking at the data again, same camera, same lens. This time ISO 400, f32, 1/250th of a second. The plane is almost like a silhouette of it. You can still see the propeller, which I think is really cool, and it's just a stunning, really epic capture. It's looking great, and you should be really proud of this one, Jakub. When we talk about composition on both of them, this is maybe when I'm gonna show you what I created. So basically, this is the image, same image. I just used your raw file and edited a little bit. And here you can see the difference mainly between the two of them, and it's the extra space I put in front of them. I think planes, I think wild animals and so on, they need lots of extra space on the photos to really showcase the speed, the wilderness, the movement of them. And I think when we start to cut them really short, I think it kind of gets a little bit left aside, which I think is a shame. So that's pretty much the only thing which I've done differently. I positioned them a little bit in the kind of thirds, use the panoramatic crop 16:9, which I think always looks really cool. Try to keep as much as of the path as possible, because I think that creates really nice effect. And what I done, I used a little bit different white balance for the background and a little bit different white balance for the steam or smoke coming from behind the planes. So that's about it. I pushed a little bit of the contrast and saturation, and I think the result is also really cool. So between two of them, I think going back to the composition, I would have left a little bit more space in front of them if at all possible. Other than that, it's still really cool. I think it's still kind of showing the movement, and it's well done. Now, talking about this one and talking about the composition, I think it's still very epic. Now, the only thing is that when you look at the sun and you look at the sky and everything, it almost looks unbelievable. It almost, I mean, most people would look at it and thought that you must have done some digital magic there. However, obviously the capture is incredible, and let's have a look what I done. So again, I just left a little bit more space around. So that's the one thing. Which also helped me to close the whole scene a little bit. So I create kind of frame around the sun and around the plane, which kind of closed it around and created a frame around, natural frame. It helped me also to create a little bit more contrast, which I think helped to balance the image. I think looking at yours, there is a lots of glow, and it's almost overwhelming, where maybe with this one, you get a little bit more of the balance between the two. I didn't go as far with the highlights probably as you went. So with you get the sun really defined. So I went more for the glow, which then kind of explained the whole glow around, I thought. And then I actually additional little bit more glow around the sun by using the masking and by adding a little bit of brightness and minusing the clarity to create glow around the sun itself. So that's what I did with it. That's what you did. Again, I think the main reason why I'm showing you is because, again, I really like to leave a little bit of space around to just kind of to showcase the kind of freedom of the plane. And in this case, I think, again, the panoramatic kind of high definition crop on the 16:9 really helps, as it almost looks like a scene from a movie, and it's super cool. So between the two, that's what it is. Post-processing, we kind of went through as I was showing you what I would do with it. Maybe a few kind of lens spots to be removed, but nothing major. Most importantly, Jakub, your photos are brilliant, loving them. Well done. Keep shooting and send us more. It would be great to see them. And also, if you have a moment, come and join us at Clever Photographer Academy. I mean, pictures like yours would be a great inspiration for our people there. We love talking photography, and we would love to have you with us. Take care, and hope to see you or speak to you soon. Moving on to the next photography, now we're moving to food photography, and we are going back to Larisa. Larisa is incredibly talented food photographer, who I spoke to last time or text. She was saying she's not sure if food photography is for her or if she could make money with it. And I think your pictures are brilliant. Your feed, Instagram feed is also really cool. You clearly have a really good eye for a composition, and your technical skills when it comes to photography, I think, really stand out quite well as well. So let me say, maybe the most important what you need is a little bit of self-trust, to be honest. Now, looking at this picture right here, so we have the different kind of muffins, I guess, or cupcakes, kind of standing on this kind of wood. A really nice combination of textures, colors, light, and depth of field. So let's have a look at the data. Canon 600D, ISO 200, 50mm lens, f3.2, 1/80th of a second. So looking at them, my only thing is, I think it's a shame. I think you work quite well and a lot of the time with the depth of field. And I think in this case, it would have been better if this cupcake would be sharp as well. I think it's a little bit odd that all of these are in focus and then this one just isn't. So that's just one thing I would kind of look at. It's always good to maybe take one picture as a blank or with having all of it in focus, and then maybe in Photoshop being able to add or remove some parts of the other stuff. Other than that, the light is quite nice. It's kind of on the darker side, but last time you were saying that that's what you like. So I think that maybe is a part of your signature and it works. And all in all, the sharpness, the texture is very cool. Now, looking at this picture, so same camera, ISO 250, 50mm still, f2.8, 1/80th of a second. Again, lots of colors, lots of really nice light, being maybe here in this part on the edge of a little bit overexposed. Let's just jump into this and see. And when I hit the whites and I hold an option, you see anything what's not white, anything what's not black is basically pure white and is kind of overexposed. That is a way to fix it. You can just bring down the highlights and then that helps. So obviously it's not all lost. It's just something to kind of keep an eye on. You can bring the highlights down a little, keep an eye on your whites. And once you get there, you will get some of the details back. So not all is lost. It's just something to keep an eye on. But other than that, technically, the sharpness obviously on this part of the image, the rest of it is very much just a styling, but it looks pretty cool. So well done, Larisa, on that. Composition wise, I think this one is great. There is a lot happening on the image, to be honest, but lots of magazines like it this way. Really nice food styling again, mixture of kind of complementing colors and complementing textures. So all in all, very kind of autumny feel, and it's really working. On this one, the composition is nice as well. Again, standing on a kind of natural colors. I think it's a touch too dark for me, but other than that, it's just working. One thing again is about the sharpness, something to kind of keep an eye on. Other than that, lovely, lovely photo. Larisa, post-processing is really, really good. Maybe this one open a little bit of more of the shadows. That's about it. On this one, the vignette is there. I wouldn't really do anything with them, Larisa. I think you're doing very, very well. Great pictures. Thank you very much for sending them over, and keep shooting. It's always joy to see them. Anyway, moving on the next photographer, we have Valentin with the macro photos. And let's have a look what we have here. Now, there is no, here we have some kind of details. On this one, we don't. And to be honest, the quality is really low, so it looks like it's all a bit blurry. Now there's maybe some sharpness here, I'm just not 100% sure. But anyway, Valentin, let's have a look at it. So on this one, no details, really small size file, so it's difficult for me to kind of judge the sharpness on this, because when I zoom in, as you can see, all becomes really pixelated. But what I really like is these drops. I think that's very well done. The light is quite nice as well. And I like the background. I think the background in a combination with, in a contrast with the color of the flower quite works. So well done there, Valentin. Moving on this one, it's a kind of interesting edit, but I'm not 100% sure what's happening there, because I think the blur was maybe introduced after in post-processing, and it's just too visible. I think it's visible. It's not really that well done. So you can see on lots of different parts. I'm not sure what the idea was, but I think this way it's just bit, yeah, it's just bit too visible, I think, for what you're trying to do, you know. So you have these parts which are really blurry, and then maybe this part which isn't blurry at all. So maybe you can kind of explain in the comments of what you were trying to do, Valentin, and then we can help you out from there. But technically, really difficult to judge. ISO 100 is a good choice. 5.6, great. 18.7 millimeter isn't the greatest lens for macro photography, but it's an option. 1/30th of a second would be better to use by, obviously, it's at about 1/30th. 1/40th, 1/50th of a second is the ideal for handheld camera, and anything above, of course, anything faster. So also just keep an eye on that to make sure that everything is sharp. Now, composition, I mean, unfortunately, this kind of post-processing take lots of attention away, especially when you also crop some part of the flower away. Clearly, I think the message is about the flower, and if I would really want to work on composition, I would probably really kind of focus on it. So you can use maybe the plants as a natural frame, but I would probably crop it as much as this, if that's what you're trying to show. Really kind of just something to work on. On this one, I think it's much clearer. I think the subject is nice. The composition is really nice in a contrast with the background. So I think this works much better that way. In the post-processing, I think this is quite nice as well. I think the kind of monotone together with the colors, the nice sharpness, nice light, I think it's nicely done. So well done on this one. On this one, there is a quite bit of a way to go, Valentin. So something to kind of work on. It would be helpful if you would send us a picture in a higher quality, so then we can kind of say a bit more about it and maybe direct you towards the better direction, you know. So that's about it, Valentin. I'm sorry I can't help more. A bit to work with and something for you to kind of focus on. Anyway, thank you very much. Take care and send us more pictures in the future if you can. And now it's time to look at the portrait photographers. So 5 portrait photographers to look at, starting with Geoff. Geoff, 2 pictures right here. Very cute baby with a big smile, and then proud parents with very, very young baby. So let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at the technical details. So Nikon D3, 24 to 120th millimeters. ISO 200, 34mm you use for this one, f7.1, 1/220th of a second. Shutter speed good, f-stop for 3 of them good as well. ISO 200, obviously you know better than me what the kind of conditions you had. No visible noise, so well done on there. Nice sharpness, really nice depth of field. Actually, they both are kind of sharp all the way through, so well done on that. Technically, quite pleasing light, kind of bit harsh in these parts, but it's all about the baby, and that's how it should be anyway. Now, let's have a look at this one as well at the same time, so we cover that. This one, Nikon D3, same lens, I believe, yes. ISO 200 again, 62mm, f6.3, 1/200th of a second. So let's have a look at the baby. It's again nice and sharp, so well done there. Lovely dress, lovely contrast created by the clothes, kind of in overall like a minimal white or bright look, which I really like. I think one thing you need to kind of look at is the sensor dust, where there is lots of it, but we'll touch upon that in the post-processing. So composition wise, even though I think it's cute, and this is maybe a picture which is a part of Siri, and then it maybe make completely sense. But as a picture one-off, I would have expect a little bit different cropping, I think. The background, I think, works, although it's very similar tone towards the baby's skin. So I think that's always a little bit tricky because there is not really a natural separation. So the baby is kind of blending a little bit together with the background. I think the dress helps, definitely, but something to kind of keep an eye on. I think it's a shame that he's missing a hand and maybe the bottom of the legs. I would probably expect on the first picture to see all of him. He has a very cute smile, so it's super cute. And if you would really want to go for this picture to start with, I would probably crop it even tighter. So that way you just don't feel like this is almost feeling like you forgot. I would probably go for something like this, which looks a little bit tighter and looks more purposeful. It looks more like it's been done on purpose. So then you could really kind of crop it and maybe bring the eyes at least on the kind of third and get maybe something like this to start with. Now, let's talk about this one and a composition. I think this is similarly just a shame that he's missing his back. You want to create kind of balanced composition, so position yourself all the way around. For the first picture, at least, I think it would be helpful. This way, we're getting more of the man. I think if you've, again, been a little bit more on the side, we would get to look at in both of the faces, which could be very, very cool. It's just kind of tips. I'm not saying that one way or the other is wrong, but some of the tips of what you could do would be to kind of position, specifically when she is there. She has the full body there and he doesn't. It's something to kind of look into. Also, when it comes to contrast, unfortunate choice of a background and her clothes, I think. So her kind of the bra here and the underwear really standing out because the rest of the cloth is really kind of blending with the background. So it's taking a little bit of the contrast away. So that's just something to kind of think of for the future as well. Now, moving into post-processing on this one, I think mostly it's the background where the texture of the linen and some dirt is really visible on it. So it's something I would definitely try to work on. Some bits can be done in Lightroom, but I think you would have to do more in Photoshop. Obviously, bring it down to exposure. See if that would maybe do a little bit of work. Is always an option, but as I say, you can see how kind of she is blending together with the background quite visibly, so you just need to be careful there. I mean, when you kind of look at it before and after, it's a little bit better. That's just very kind of quick fix and something what you could do, unless you're gonna do a full like a replacement. Let's see the overlay, and I know I took some of his hair, definitely, and hair as well, actually. So maybe it's just something like this to start with. Obviously, I know that you can see what I'm trying to do, but that way it looks a little bit cleaner and it brings the focus back to them again, rather than having the kind of very visible kind of creased background with some dirt on it and so on. So this is where you could take it in Lightroom and then you could do so much more in Photoshop. Other than that, they have a very natural skin, which I really like. The light is really nicely done. They're all nice and sharp, so nothing wrong about that part. It's more the background. Where on this one, again, nothing really wrong with it. Maybe I would push the saturation even more, keeping an eye on the tone of the skin. But I think the main thing which standing out here is the amount of sensor dust, and it's all these little circles, as you can see here. It can be removed in Lightroom really quickly by using this healing brush. You just click on visualize spot, which shows you the spots. Maybe time. This one, and this one, and this one. And here you can also actually brush with the tool. So you can do a line. There's one more here. So you should definitely have a look at your lens and see what's kind of standing out. Switch it off. Let's see. That's much better. There's one more here, definitely. And I think that's much cleaner. Let's see before and after. So That's the main thing I would do here. It's incredibly cute. Anyway, Geoff, thank you very much for sharing the picture with us. Take care and send us more in the future. Moving on next, we have Gustav. Gustav, 2 images, this beautiful woman in the interior with very pleasant light on her. And then this kind of walk-through corridor view. So very, very cool. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at the details here. So Fujifilm camera, ISO 3200, f2.8, 125th of a second. So when it comes to setting, obviously the ISO is quite high, but that's how it is. Sometimes the lighting conditions just don't allow you to go any lower than that. You must know better than me how did it look like. Obviously, when you go to these kind of thousands of ISO, you're starting to lose a little bit of the sharpness, as you know yourself. Once you kind of look at this eye, the whole picture in overall, it's nicely sharp. There is a nice depth of the field created with the lens, with the 2.8, obviously being the kind of foreground soft and background soft. I think it works very, very well. However, obviously the ISO does bring its downfalls, which is a noise and less sharpness in overall. When I have a look at the light, I think it's very pleasing. I think there is a very kind of nice soft light coming from this side, creating kind of darker side on her face, which I think works very well. And again, I think depth of field created with the kind of f2.8 actually looks very, very well, Gustav. So well done. In overall, technically, this is very well done and well handled. Now, talking about this one, ISO 1600, f5.6, 1/30th of a second. Now, again, you know, when you go this high, it does introduce the noise, which is a bit more visible here than on the previous one. And because the person is a little bit smaller and a little bit further, it takes even more details away, which I think is a little bit of a shame. However, this is a bit more about the composition, I feel like, rather than the technique. Talking about technique for the rest, I think the brightness is good, the highlights are good. There's quite nice light coming from there as well. So let's leave it there and let's move on composition. So this is where I think this would come across. I think as the main subject and composition comes through the tunnel, kind of creating flow, I would probably look more for getting the tunnel being centered. So I would do something like this, just making sure that that works. And after that, I think it works. Me personally, I'm quite specific about certain things, and that's like this fire exit and little camera. I would remove it in Photoshop. It's just me. There are certain elements and items on any kind of photo, and like this is, for example, the example of it. And that's not for every photographer, that's just me. I would remove it simply because it takes attention away from the picture, and I think it's a shame. Otherwise, I think it's nicely done. Nice leading line, a nice focus, nice light coming from there. Well done for that. Well done. Obviously, even nice kind of maybe lucky color tones with the brown. I think it works quite nicely there. So well done again. Now on this one, I think the composition is spot on. Obviously, the eye being almost on the golden third here. That works really well. The lady kind of looking into the space where there is extra space for her. Again, very well done. So all in all, Gustav, composition-wise, really well done. Post-processing is spot on this one. Straight walls, bright, clean, natural, absolutely nothing to add. I think you've done extremely well on this one. Now, on this one, with the lack of colors and everything, on one side, you're kind of wondering if black and white wouldn't be the choice. And it would be a choice. I mean, you know, it also has something around it which kind of adds a special feeling to it. Also, when I zoom in, I see maybe some leftovers of post-processing here. There's kind of soft edges on this part, but you must know what it is. But just kind of keep an eye on it to make sure that you avoid it to be as visible. Other than that, post-processing, I would probably push the vignette even more to really close on the lady. I would probably even create linear gradient at the bottom here and close it even more from the bottom to kind of really highlight the path through. And then maybe with the brush, I would again just create a little bit of exposure and just paint in different parts to create another kind of leading line in. You could even highlight these brighter areas And that's about it. So, Gustav, thank you very much for sending us your photos. It was a pleasure to review them. They were great. Lovely work with your portrait photography. Well done. And make sure you keep shooting and send us more when you have them. Moving on, the next photographer, we have a John. John, we have this lovely, lovely girl on a kind of beach day out. And then a wedding photography in a black and white. So let's talk about it. Starting with this one. Let's have a look at the details. So Nikon D700, 35mm lens. Now this was ISO 100, f1.4, 6400 of a second. Now that's some shutter speed. So it must be really, really bright. Okay, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a nice edit altogether. I mean, zooming in, it seems to be sharp enough. The light obviously hitting her from a side doesn't seem to be as harsh as it is. Quite nice reflection as well. Nice kind of depth of field with her being in focus and the background not. So all in all, quite nice capture, technically quite well done. Now talking about this one and talking about technical part of the image, nice black and white photography, quite tasteful. I think it's quite nicely done with nice contrast in mix of nice brightness. Here the shadows are a little bit stronger, looking at it like this. Sadly, we have no information about the data, but when I go and jump into the light and hit the whites with my option alt, you can see the white parts. That's where the brightness is a bit too high. And if you would print it like this, these areas would be completely burned out. Now, sometimes you can fix it with highlights and see if that helps. So you can do something like this, and that actually brings some of the data back into the image. So it's just something to kind of work with. Sometimes it's completely lost. In your case, it isn't. So that's where I would take it. No noise or minimal. So I think that's quite cool. And even though the light is harsh, it's still a very nice scene. I'm sure for the wedding couple, it would be a lovely photo. Very kind of intimate capture. And I quite like it. Well done. Now, when we come to composition, I think that we'll just repeat what I just say. They kind of create almost like a heart together. It's a moment. They are very close to each other, so I think it works very well. I think the tight crop on this kind of image also works because it just highlights how close they are to each other, and it's well done. Now, talking about composition here, I would crop it a little bit tighter. I think this top of the sky is a good reminder of if the part of the image doesn't add anything to the overall story or composition, it doesn't really need to be there. So go for 16:9, really kind of cinematic crop, and just kind of crop it away. And that way you get something like this, which I think is so much stronger composition, so much stronger storytelling, really focusing on the girl. So when you look at it first here, you kind of, there's a lot happening around her, where once you crop it, you really get something like this, where we getting a really nice and powerful storytelling scene. Now, when it comes to post-processing, it's not 100% my style, but I think it really works. I think, as always, in photography and painting and everything, the combination of blue and cool colors with the warmth of yellow, orange, everything, just really works. It's probably one of the nicest contrasts you can create. That's why sunsets are so powerful. You know, you get your blue on the top and you get your warmth below, and it just works. And in this case, it works a lot. I would keep an eye on the skin colors just to make sure that they don't go crazy yellow. But all in all together, I think it works quite well. Obviously, you could make a little vignette just to add a little bit more focus on her. I think what I would do next time, I would try to see if you could capture the whole reflection. I think it would be even cooler. I'm sure you kind of know that, but if that would be possible, that would give us even more to work with. Another, I think, a really cool thing which could happen, I wonder if you can create little duplicate photo. That would be great. So let's duplicate this photo. And another thing you could really do is to go into color. And I know it's kind of out of trend now, but I still think it can be quite powerful when you do something like this. When you kind of really just let the girl stand out and her clothes, you can then use a brush and lower the saturation all the way down and really just kind of brush away the blues which you don't want there. And then you go out of this and then you kind of push it like a really strong black and white. So you do like a heavy contrast, you bring the blacks down, and in effects, you kind of push the clarity a little bit, and then you could actually close the picture on the top, like this, and then bring down the exposure there, maybe a little, and you could do something similar. See from the front, and it would be just another edit and just another idea. I know it's a little bit different than what you were doing, but it's just another look. So this is kind of your version, which I think is super cool. This is the next kind of idea and something what could look super cool as well. Now, talking about this one, not much to add. I would maybe push the contrast just a touch and maybe bring the exposure up a little. I think with the selective color, I would maybe just brighten their faces in this kind of area. So to do something like this, just a little, just to bring some of the details back, maybe open the shadows on them. And that's about it. So all in all, John, thank you very much. I hope some of the tips were helpful for you. If you have more pictures, make sure you send them over, and take care. Moving on, the next photographer, we have a Peter. Peter, we have two pictures from you, two portraits, ladies mostly on them. So let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at the details. So Fujifilm camera, ISO 200, f6.4, 1/480th of a second. So this is almost like your kind of travel documentary kind of style of photography. The light is very harsh and even, which doesn't really add great pleasing effect to the portrait photo. However, when it comes to setting, there isn't nothing really wrong. With this kind of light, I would definitely stick to ISO 100 if it's possible, just to avoid any noise and keep it as clean as possible. Now, 6.4 is good. You could have go down a little bit more and create a little bit more depth of field, you know, to kind of blur some parts of the image. But all in all, it's a lovely capture. 1/480 of the second, really depends on the light, and you would know the best when you were capturing the image. And now, talking about this one, similarly, better light here, a bit more diffused. So everybody is lit equally, but we're getting a little bit of shadows under their chins, and we're getting like a nice color, no harsh shadows around them. So I think this one is a little bit better. However, because probably you were in darker, there is a ISO 800, so that created a little bit of noise in some areas, more color noise than anything else. However, again, something to look an eye. Your f-stop went down, and you see how it helped right away, creating this kind of nice depth of field and a little bit of blur. That's really handy. And 1/340th of a second is a good choice to keep everybody nice and sharp. Now, talking about composition on this one thing always to check is the geometry to make sure that everything is straight on this kind of photo. So that's it. That's what I would do here. Again, keep an eye on the crop, making sure that everything is nice and balanced, going this way. Now, obviously, it's a shame that the two girls are looking at you. This one is looking away. So that's something to kind of think of for the next time. Other than that, I think it's very cool. I think it's very nicely done. They're nicely together. They're nicely positioned. And it's very well done. Now, talking about this one, obviously, when it comes to composition, ideally, you kind of looking for placing the third and creating something like this. But that's not the case. That's not what you're trying to show. So let's reset it. And again, starting, first of all, you want to make sure that the geometry is right, so that everything is straight. Let's see, maybe something like this. And maybe just push it a little bit towards the side by doing something like this would be helpful. And then you need to kind of help to it in post-processing. Now, one thing you can do is to turn it black and white. Another thing you can do is to turn down the overall exposure, keep an eye on the whites and blacks, bring down the highlights a little bit, open the shadows a little, add contrast. Also, another good effect is to go into the color, bring down the saturation and push the vibrance so it looks a little bit more natural. And then keep an eye on the white balance by checking the auto. You don't want it that cool, but maybe something like this, a bit more natural. And to finish it off for a picture like this, maybe just adding a vignette and leaving it like that. On this thing, talking about the girls, you can create little linear gradient from the bottom to, you can create little linear gradient from the bottom and add some minus exposure to kind of close the picture and bring extra focus on their faces. You could add exactly the same from the top. Again, close the image a little bit more. Then you can add radial gradient on their faces and brighten them up just a little bit. We can just duplicate and again duplicate and do something like this, and that's about it. Peter, thank you so much. Lovely pictures, lovely captures. I'm assuming it's some kind of family photos. They're still very well done. Keeping an eye, this is much better lighting than the first one. Really, it's always better to position somebody in this kind of shade because you get diffuse light and it works much better. So that's one thing to look at. And keeping an eye on the ISO. Work out the way how you can lower the ISO and remove the noise, so then everything can be just a little bit more sharper. Take care, and until next time, keep shooting. So moving on next, and final portrait photographer, we have a Vilma. Vilma, we have 2 pictures from you. And I'm assuming this lady is celebrating maybe a pregnancy or something like that. And then this lady in the forest, I have to say, this is beautiful. This is very, very pretty. The glow, the leaves, that works very, very well. And in contrast with the black and the white dress, very nice, Vilma. Well done for that. So let's have a look. Information right here. Canon Mark, 5D Mark, 4, ISO 5000. Oof, heavy, heavy ISO. 124mm lens, f4.5, 1/100 of a second. So shutter speed, good. F-stop, probably as low as you could go at that point. And then the high ISO. And the high ISO will be something what will take the sharpness away from the face always. So that's probably why you went for this kind of edit, which is still very nice and very magical. However, it's quite heavy, the noise. So when it comes to technical point of view, I think the noise is the biggest problem here, and it's maybe a little bit to do with the gear. And if it's not to do with the gear, you kind of need to pick a brighter place for next time, so then you can really kind of keep the numbers under control a little bit more. Where on this one, there is no information. However, you can right away see the sharpness is so much better, so the ISO must have been much better here. Nice sharpness. Really crisp and nice editing here. The light is very nice from behind as well as from the side on hair and probably on a dress as well. So this is very well handled. Really nice depth of field you can see on a tree, and really nice storytelling. Same goes with the composition on this one. Really clear subject with the leaves. I think it creates really nice storytelling and it's very well handled. Now on this one, I have to say that the red vignette is really distracting for me. I think if you would have kept that away and really just focus on the red dress, so if you had done almost something like this, you would have kind of, just kind of, now of course she has a red dress, so it will not disappear, right? But if you would have done maybe something more like a selective color effect, I think it would have been so much more powerful than the vignette around her. So probably something like this. Obviously this is just very quick example of what I mean, but I think that would have, or you could do her hand just a little bit, maybe by lowering the flow to like 15 and then just paint just some color into her face and body so it looks a little bit more natural. This. And suddenly you have something a little bit more interesting, I think, compared to what we were kind of before. Just kind of idea. I think it seems very, the kind of red vignette seems to be very distracting and very unnatural. But that's just maybe what I would do with it. So hopefully it was a little bit helpful. Post-processing, so we talk about the vignette. I kind of show you a little bit of what I would do with it. And we talk about the technical part. Now, in post-processing on this one, Vilma, absolutely nothing. Spot on, beautiful capture, beautifully edited, ready for the cover of the magazine. So well done, thumbs up, congratulations. And if you have more photos, make sure you send them over. If you haven't done yet, make sure you join us at the Facebook Academy, Clever Photographer Academy on Facebook page. And take care. Hope to see your pictures soon. So that's about it for the portrait. Let's jump into the wildlife photography. And it's time for the last and final set of images. Wildlife photography, my favorite. All the styles are my favorite. However, I really like the wildlife photography, and especially some of the recent photographers were very inspiring. So it's really cool to look at them. So we are here looking at Ken, one of our most regular photographers we have here at the show and also in our Facebook group. Ken, this one is beautiful. What a gorgeous, gorgeous capture of the bird, working really well with the contrast with the green, so well done there. And this one, little bit overwhelming, I think. I understand the idea of the framing, but to be honest, in this case, I think it would have benefit if you would have gone a little bit closer with the lens. So let's have a look at them. So starting here, looking at the camera data, so you still with your Nikon Coolpix, ISO 100, 15.3mm this time, f3.5, 1250th second. So little bit of a glow behind her. Now when I go into the light and white, just kind of keep an eye on your exposure here and the whites. As you can see, anything what's not black, it's overexposed at that moment. Lots of it can be kind of fixed in the post-processing, but just keep an eye on it to make sure that you don't go crazy, because when you would print those, they would be really kind of burned out. So just look at that. Other than that, the light isn't really crazy, to be honest, on this one. I don't know why, but it's maybe to do with the colors, or because some of it seems like a black and white. I wonder if you are trying to do the selective color on this one, which may be the case. Let me see if I can see the name here. Doesn't seem to. But anyway, if you're trying to do that, then maybe the result is quite nice. I think the blue-green works really cool. All in all, the sharpness is good. The backlight is interesting. No noise, so all in all, very good. But this one is a beauty. So same camera, ISO 800. Again, keep an eye on the ISO number. f5.6, creating a really nice background, 1/100th of a second, keeping the bird nice and sharp. All in all, lovely, lovely photo. Now, I would crop a little tighter. So to do something like this, to create almost like an arch from one side to the other to make it more balanced. So this is what I would do with it. And other than that, it's very cool. Clear message, clean subject, very well done. On this one, equally, I would crop closer and tighter. So just kind of avoiding the frame all together and just go for something like this. So we're positioning the subject in the center of the image. We take in the tree, which is really nice. And obviously then we just have the green background at the back. Now, if you're trying to do the selective color, as I'm saying, it really mostly only work with one color at a time. So in this case, I would probably remove the blue as well. And suddenly you have just the green and then something to work with. Now, when you do that also, what's really cool is to really push the things like contrast, blacks, and for example, in effects, the clarity. That kind of makes it a little bit more grungy, a little bit more contrasty and more powerful. So this is where I would leave it. I think it's actually really cool. Another thing you could do is to go to selective edit and see if it's able to select the sky. And if it is, then we could kind of almost overexpose the sky and get something like this. So you're getting a really kind of powerful scene, which is actually really cool looking. So well done on that, Ken. And here are just a few ideas of what you could do with it. Now, talking about this one, to be honest, nothing else than a little bit of a vignette, maybe pushing a little bit of the saturation just to get some of the colors back, and in light, pushing the contrast, and suddenly you have a really lovely capture ready to be printed and put and framed and put on a wall. All in all, Ken, thank you so much. This is a beauty, and it's always a pleasure to look at your images. Moving next, we have a Mike. One picture from Mike, but sometimes one picture is better than 100, because this is, again, beautiful, beautiful capture. The movement, the background, excellent. One of the nicest picture I've seen recently of this type of photography. Very well done. Let's have a look at the details. Canon 40D. The lens you're using is 100 to 400. So your settings were ISO 200, 210 millimeter lens, f6.3, 1/640th of a second. I love the sharpness on the body, the beautiful movement in the wing, the sharpness on the beak, just all in all, Mike, beautiful, beautiful. Then obviously the background with the lovely color and almost kind of bouquet-like and light leak-like look just really works here. So well done there as well. Not crazy noise, and unfortunately, because it's a kind of smaller picture, looking at the pixels, it looks a little bit soft, but I don't think it's because the picture is soft. I think it's because of the size of the image and size of my screen. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. Composition wise, brilliant. The whole bird with the movement, with the contrast, really works. Post processing, very natural, very natural, but still very strong in the sense of it's almost like a National Geographic capture. So nice contrast created by the colors, by the movement. All in all, Mike, I'm sorry I can't tell you much more because this is beautiful capture and it's really well done. So keep shooting. If you haven't joined us yet, make sure you head to our Clever Photographer Academy and share some of your images with you. We would love to learn from guys like you and get inspired from photographers like you. So if you have more pictures, send them in the future. Otherwise, take care and keep shooting. Moving on, we have a Murray, more wildlife photos. Now, first thing which strikes me is the white balance. So let's see. We just look at the white balance and switch it to auto. And those are raw files. Am I right? So I think white balance is the first thing. You way off yellow and greens, it seems like, on all of them. So that's the first thing to kind of look at on this one. Now, we usually do 2 pictures. So let's pick which one we're going to do. So let's say these 2. So we look at this one and this one. So again, let's go into the white balance and let's just go to auto. And you can see how immediately it kind of helps to fix it. You can also use the picker and maybe find some white. So that's way too white, but at least something like this I think would be beneficial. So now looking at 2 of them, let's see if you've done any post-processing to it. And it seems you haven't. So I don't know if I'm supposed to do it or no. Anyway, let's just do one then. So less yellow, something like this. Obviously, different crop. Again, we can do 16 on 9. Let's something like this. Now, when we're gonna edit, we're gonna open the highlights, open the shadows. Not crazy, but something like this. Check the whites with holding Option or Alt. Bring down the blacks with holding Option or Alt. Then definitely push the contrast. In this case, I think push a little bit of the vibrance to bring some of the colors back. Then in effects, bring down the clarity to make it a little bit more natural, but push some of the texture back. In details, it's always good to go for something like 90. And when I use 90, I always take 100 minus the sharpness. So it's leftover, it's 10. So I do noise reduction for 10. In optics, just to make sure they are enabled. So that's about it. Double check the cropping, something like this. And that's about it. In effect, I would close the vignette a little bit. Similarly, I would use radial gradient on the actual bird and invert it and do something like this. Do one more with the brush, bring the exposure up and actually paint on the bird. And maybe even on this. All in all, there we have it. So that's where I will leave it. Lovely, lovely capture, Marie. Great, very nice and sharp. Let's have a look at the capture. Let's have a look at the details. Just Nikon D7000, ISO 640. So there is a little bit of noise, especially at the background, but it's all cool. 300 millimeters, so spot on like this. F9 and 1/1600 of a second. I love the sharpness of the image, I have to say. That's really well done, Marie. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. I'll maybe edit another one later, but in the same time, thank you so much for sending it. Take care and make sure you keep shooting. Now we're moving to Peter. Peter, let me just show you before. Just kind of the message goes for everyone, Peter. Obviously, reviewing photos, my main subject is to look at the image, look at the artwork, rather than looking at the frames and signatures. Specifically when it comes to use of white signatures, white frames. As you know, the human eyes get immediately attracted by the brightest and whitest part of the image. And in this case, it's the frame. So it takes lots of attention away. So this is why I went away and crop actually the frame away. And if you're going to send us more pictures, which we would love to, please refrain from using them as they really take lots of attention away. And many photographers basically don't review pictures once they are in that condition. So anyway, beautiful two captures. So obviously that's beautiful, beautiful birds fighting with each other. So that's a great capture. So let's look at the information. There is no camera information neither. There is a little bit of noise at the background, just kind of looking at it from this point of view. There is a little bit of noise at the background, but then I'm assuming a really nice high shutter speed with lots of sharpness and a touch of movement in a tail and a wing. So well done there. Lovely color, lovely light hitting from this side. So technically really well done. Again here, lovely sharpness into the bird with some movements in different parts. Again, little bit of noise around them, but again, very lovely light coming from the side. So Peter, this technically is just very well done. And congratulations on your work there. Now, composition, they are very simple images when it comes to composition, but super powerful. Obviously, the contrast of the birds with the background, I think really creates beautiful storytelling. The subjects are clear and it's well done all together. That goes for both of the images. And when it comes to the editing, yes, obviously there are some kind of lens dusts here, which could be removed just as a kind of attention to some of the details and to make it a little bit cleaner. But it really isn't a big deal because they are just very, very powerful and great images. Post-processing is very natural, great white balance, highlights, shadows, exposure, very well done here. And all in all, Peter, great captures, and I'm very happy to see them. So thank you for submitting them to the review show. It's always great to see images like this. Now, moving to the last photographer of the week, we have Stevie. Stevie, usually we see your landscape photography and landscape photos. However, this week we have some wildlife photos. So let's have a look. 2 pictures per week. So this one is gorgeous with the background and in the combination with the pink sky. What a capture. This one is beautiful as well. A little bit of noise at the back, but nice, again, depth of field there. This one is this one made me laugh this morning, so I love that. Again, great sharpness in it with a very kind of contrasting background, which I think works very well. This one is very like a documentary, like the full bird, which I really like, in a movement, which is great as well. Not the greatest background contrast there, but still great capture. So let's just look at them all 4 in a kind of little bit, not hurry, but just kind of quick so everybody gets the chance to see them. So I think let's see, in all 4 of them, you're using Nikon D500. Is it the same lens as well? So yes, same lens, 200 to 500 millimeters. Now looking at them, all in all, your ISO either goes really high to 1600 or you're staying somewhere around 400. Obviously, when you go to something like 500, even 5.6 will create really kind of blurry background, which can work really well if it's in a nice contrast with the subject and the background. So well done there. 3200 of a second, 2500 of a second. Is generally your choice. I wonder if some of them you could have gone a little bit slower. I think when they're running and they're really moving, it makes complete sense. But when they, for example, standing and not doing really anything, maybe a little bit slower would help you. And then you would be able to bring down the ISO and, work out the whole math. Now, when we talk about composition, this one is great. Obviously, lots of space in front of him. Looking out, again, great contrast with the background. This one flying, a beautiful capture. A really kind of full wing open, the kind of movement up, Very, very well done. This one, a little bit closer crop, but really makes you laugh, and just very, very nice capture. Again, great contrast with the background. And this one, the movement is great. Again, going into the space, which I really like for the wildlife photography. And it's an excellent, excellent result. Now, talking about editing, I have to say this one is almost on the edge of unnatural, but you know what? It's still very, very nice. So beautiful bird flying through very kind of similar colors. Well done there. On this one, still very nice. Yeah, nice edit, nice positioning. Post-processing, it's very clean. This one, again, very natural edit with the great colors and more kind of monotone effect, but great looking. And this one also very lovely. Just kind of maybe something to look at would be another tool to manage the high ISO at the noise, something like maybe Topaz Denoise AI or something like that, to just help you with that a little. And again, maybe double think about some of these birds, if they really need to be captured with such a high shutter speed. Just something to kind of think of for a future, Stevie. Thank you very much. I know I kind of rushed through it, but I thought for all the people, it would be quite nice to see all 4 pictures rather than just me looking at the 2, because anyway, there isn't anything really wrong with your images. No technically, no composition wise. It's just very well done. Great captures. And thank you so much for sharing them with us. I can't wait to see more pictures from you soon. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to join us for the next episode of our photography review show, all you need to do is to head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/review, find all the dates, links, and information there of how you can become the photographer of the week or take your photography and keep moving it forward. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me this week. Take care and keep shooting.